Hello, everyone, and as always, welcome back to Strategy Gaming Dojo, where we find, learn, and play one more turn of the great strategy games. Today, into the Big Daddy of Gary Grigsby's War in the Pacific Admirals Edition. This is our Let's Play against the devilish Mr. Laudric. It is now February 9th, 1942, and this is our setup phase. So we've just seen the combat resolution from the 7th and the 8th. It is now the 9th of 1942 as things continue apace. Now, usually we'll run up here, check out the stats, then we'll go around. I always say, gosh, I'd love to go all the way around the map. Obviously, the map is huge. But I always kind of get stuck on one thing, and by the time I've talked it through, I'm like, where did the hour go? Um, let's go look at the stats. Then I don't know. I said I was going to look at Midway and Johnston and whatnot. We'll see where the mood strikes us. But let's check out the stats first. All right. Today we ran 5,187 sorties. The Japanese a little over 9,000 for the campaign. You can see he's run almost, well, I say almost, a little over a quarter of a million sorties. We've run about 157,000. Air-to-air losses, we really did well this time. A lot of that was up and over Rangoon. We now have trops there. You say trops. Yeah, British aircraft, the British fighters have now arrived in Rangoon, and he was sending in, his Oscars and his Zeros thinking, oh, well, this is easy as it's been all over the map so far for him with air power. We're now finally starting to get some air power, and it's going to make it a lot more difficult for him to just bomb wherever the heck he wants, at least outside of China. In China, you just don't have any air power. Destroyed on the field, we had one. Now that's in the Philippines. Still destroyed by flak, 0-0. He took 20 operational losses that time, or so the game tells us. Of course, we've got fog of war. We don't know the exact number. Usually, it's going to be a little higher than what we know about or see. Political points, we've got a lot stored up, 825 now, so we could actually get after, buying out a regiment that's attached to the West Coast, sending it out into the Pacific. Maybe that's something we will do this turn. Japanese score. He's at 13,408. We're at 7,489. Now, you may look at that and say, oh my God, we're way behind. We've already lost. It's a major victory. No, I mean, this ebbs and flows. We start off way in advance, right, or way up. And then as he does all of his attacks early in the game, he's going to take bases. And as you can see, we now control 502 bases. He controls 335. Of course, every base has different point totals for both us and the Axis. So, some places are very important to him and maybe less important to us. From a point perspective, just always something to keep in mind. It's not like you get 1 point for taking a base and he loses 1 point or something. Each base has its own point values. Allied aircraft points lost, and that's how that works. When you lose aircraft, you lose points. We've lost 811. He's lost 480. Army points lost 6124 to 118. Well, a lot of Philippines, a lot of China, a lot in the Dutch East. Well, not quite into the Dutch East Indies yet, but down Malaysia. We've just gotten really hurt. He's had a great bombing campaign in China that's then caused us to lose a lot of ground forces because they've been softened up so well. Allied ships sunk 363. This is way too high. We didn't escort nearly as much at the start as we should, and as I would now if we booted it back up. But this is where we are, 363, 2615 on the point loss. We're only showing 6 Japanese ships gone down. Again, fog of war, we have no idea. I always like to go look at the ship sunk this turn. We did have one cargo ship, the Ethiopia, worth 11 points. It was a British ship. It was near Bustleton, so it's up in the northwest corner of Australia. We lost that to a torpedo out by Bustleton. So anyway, wait a minute. Hold on. Wait a minute. That's not where Bustleton is. Bustleton must be up this way, right? Oh gosh, this is going to drive me crazy now. If you ever want to know how to do this, list all bases, all right? And you can put them in alphabetical order, and we'll come down here to Bustleton. And there it is. Now, why don't I? Some of you are going to give me crap for not remembering. Oh, well, that's right. I thought it was on the west coast of Australia. So right out here, and you can see we actually have another damaged ship that's going to try to make it back to Perth. He's got sub activity out here, and we've got to get better escorts. We lost the Ethiopia this time. Luckily, it wasn't more than that. But 11 points here, 11 points there. It adds up. Ultimately, you have a ton of cargo ships, but all the Japanese players trying to do is do better than they did historically, and he has certainly succeeded in that when it comes to our shipping. Let's go back to the stats very quickly. Group reinforcement, we'll see what kind of planes we're getting in. We're getting Blenheims, those are bombers into Aden. We don't really have much use for bombers. Some of these Blenheims I'm running as like naval search right now. Now you've always got to go look at your pilots and see, what they're good at or what you want to train them up for. But Blenheims, we don't have a lot of use for ground bombers at this very moment. We could potentially put some out in China. I've done, that would be the only obvious place where we could really use ground bombers at this point. You see, we get a battleship, and they've always got some recon planes on them. Okay, fine. The big thing here, the wildebeests are nice. These wildebeests, we get 12 of them into what I call W Town. That is down in New Zealand. It's the very northern base in New Zealand. These wildebeests are torpedo bombers, and those are so helpful. So his ships at least have to respect us a little bit. Respect us in the morning with the wildebeest. Hurricane 1 Trops, those are the ones we love to get. The Trops are just fantastic, mainly because the British pilots you get with them are really, really quite good. You can see we get a lot of planes into San Diego soon. Those kind of coincide with us getting the carrier Hornet. Um, okay, list top pilots. Do we have an ace? Do we have an? No, we still don't. No joke, this is far and away the longest I've ever gone in a game without an ace. You can also see many of our best pilots have been killed in action. Boo. We've actually, in the campaign, we've had 207 wounded, 146 pilots killed in action. We have to hope that we're thinning the Japanese pilot herd at a even higher rate than that. I have no idea, Fog of War. Ship sunk, we've talked about that. Ship availability, what do we get coming in here soon? Now you can, search and sort these any way you want. You can see all of our carriers, which are CVs, and when they come in. Light carriers, the CVLs. Then we have more CVs. I don't know why the game breaks them up that way. Is it because where they come into? I think maybe it is. Balboa. Yeah, it wants to put all those Balboas together. But as you can see, if we look at it from a date perspective, the Lexington 2 comes in, before, let's say, the Cowpens or something. Now, I get that we're. Yeah, okay, I've gone down a road I don't want to go down. The point is sometimes this sort gets just a little screwy. But you just got to know that, I guess. Just so you know, heads up. ETA, let's go see what we have coming in soon. Anything exciting? Well, we get the Ram Illies and the Resolution, two British battleships coming into Cape Town. Same old stuff. We've looked over all of this before. The big one is when we get the Hornet in. Can we go see the Hornet? There we go. The Hornet comes in 30 days, so that'll be about March 9th, approximately March 11th, I guess, because February is short. That'll come in at the eastern U.S., the CV Hornet. So that will be our fifth carrier finally. So if we batch them all together, we could at least take on one of the Japanese carrier task forces. You just gotta hope he doesn't have them both together if that should pass. All right, we've looked at a lot of these. What troops are coming in. I'm not going to try to spend a lot of time on it. You can see we've got more and more stuff coming into Chungking. I talk about that every time. I get super excited when we get things into Chungking because you need as much into China as possible. You've got to turn that into a stalemate. If you don't, big problems. First Australian Corps, that's a huge one. These guys coming in, we've got field regiments. Those are artillery. We've got brigades coming in. We'll get those down to Australia just as fast as we can. That was ground enforcement. We looked at the ships. Okay, that's good. Let's go look around the map. Let's just now. This is when I always wish we could zoom out. I'm gonna start up near Abaddon. This is when I start a turn. This is where I always start. I start at Abaddon and Aiden. And, if you've watched these videos enough, what are we doing? We're loading up every ship that we can at Abaddon with oil, and I say oil, I shouldn't do that. Fuel, and taking it to Karachi. If there is oil up here, I don't even know. Do we have any oil stored up here? Yeah, we got a little bit of oil stored here. Not a whole lot, but just a little bit. We've also got a lot of fuel up here, of course. I mean, just a massive amount of fuel. You take that fuel from Abaddon down to Karachi. You try to do it on tankers if you can, or AOs. Now, you may say, what's the difference between an AO and a tanker? Well, an AO is really what they use to refuel ships at sea. You don't really need those as much until you get a little more offensive. Now, you could use them as the allies down near Tahiti or Haiba-Oa or places like that, because if you're going from the west coast of the US over to Australia, it's a long, long journey. You don't have a lot of ships that can do it. And so you may want to have these, I call them floating gas stations, sit out by there full of fuel, and then they can just fuel up those ships as they go by to the extent they need them. Many times I'll use AOs though early in the game just to go dump fuel. I mean, they got a massive capacity. You can use them just like a tanker. They usually have a decent speed too. They're great, really great ships. You can see here we've got a lot of what's set up as cargo. So if you look at the icons, that is a tanker designation. The rest of these are all cargo destination or designations. But as you can see, I'm loading them up with fuel. As I always say in these, always keep in mind, if you have a dry cargo ship, which an AK is, it can only take on half of its capacity in wet. So in fuel in this case, okay? So I've got this loading with fuel. These guys I haven't set up for this turn yet. This is loading fuel, as you can tell. And the reason I'm doing that is we've just built up so much fuel, 165,000. We've only got 4,000 in supply. We got to let that supply build up. So I'm using a lot of cargo ships to go in here. And which ships do I keep at Abaddon? You can see we've actually even got some in here at port. We got one, the Admiral Chase. What ships do I keep here? Ones with very short endurance, because Abaddon to Karachi is a very quick ride. And so I try to have guys that like the 10,000, 11,000, 12,000 endurance cargo. I keep in Abaddon. Anything that's 13,000 plus for endurance, once they're filled up. As a matter of fact, let's look at the Admiral Chase. It's only got a 6,000 endurance. Okay, well, that's obviously, we'll just take that to Karachi, right? Some of these I would even put in Bombay and maybe go Bombay to Colombo with them, but these are very short range. Anything over 13,000, I batch them all up. I bring them out on the map, I put them through the penalty box and send them to Cape Town, because at Cape Town with those bigger endurances, they can either go to the east coast of the US or they can go to Perth, one or or both. So I put all the high endurance ships in Cape Town that start on the western side of the map. Just something to keep in mind. So we're going Abaddon to Karachi. Great. Aden. Aden's where most of your troops come in, and planes. So when I say most of your British stuff, so your British equipment and troops, generally speaking, come in at Aden. I would say 80 to 90% of the time they show up at Aden. So you want transports up here. Almost all the transports I have on the western side of the map, I will send up to Aden, because eventually they're going to have troops to pick up. You also want cargo ships maybe with a little higher endurance. So some of those 13 or 14 or 16,000 cargo ships, don't send them all to Cape Town. Some of them you want to send over to Aden. Fill them up first, because Aden does not get supplied or fueled nearly as well as Abaddon. So batch them up, batch up a group of them, fill them up, send them over to Aiden. You can see we're low in supply. That's what that red exclamation is. I do have supply coming over here. It just hasn't come here yet. Why would you send higher endurance over to Aiden? They don't have much. Well, that's because you turn them into air transports. And these air transports then can take your air wings that come in and put them on here. So you can use dry cargo ships to put your planes on, and then you can take them anywhere, just like a transport does for infantry troops or ground troops. You can use these dry cargo AKs to put planes on. Just turn them over, make their mission air transport. It'll give you this cooler new little design here, icon, and then you can start putting planes on. So I've got these set up here. We've actually got the 803rd Squadron, 806th Squadron ready to go into Karachi, and that's what I do. I take them to, from Aden. You just set your destination as Karachi. They'll exit the penalty box here. They'll come into Karachi and unload here, and then you can fly them down the peninsula. It's a lot more safe than trying to get them to come all the way to Colombo. Now you may say, well, then why do you send high endurance ships up there for that mission? Well, it depends. Some of these you don't want to come into Karachi. You may want to take them all the way down the western side of the map. Hell, who knows? You may bring them in here at the Cocos, Christmas Island IO. You may want to bring them up here. But most usually, if you're going to take them somewhere, you would probably take them to Australia. You dump them at Perth. They fly to Esperance, or if you can, you try to get all the way to Seduna. But it's Esperance to Seduna. This is how you jump from the eastern part of Australia, western part, western, eastern. You get the idea. So, if you're going to be using them for aircraft transport, I would generally say use higher endurance ones because, yes, sometimes they are going to just come to Karachi. Any of the stuff that's in 221 RAF, 222 RAF, 223, 224, and 225, those are going to come into India. But what do we have here? The 803rd, 806th. We've got Fulmars. 12 Fulmars is the 806th. Fulmars are fighter bombers. Now, let's look at their pilots and see what they're really set up to do. And you can see they're set up really to be fighters. They don't really have good ground bombing ability. 29 is the average. Um, they do have some low gunnery here, some strafing. And so just keep that in mind. This might be something you want to use to strafe because they have good experience, so they can come in and do some strafing. But, air to air escort right now in the game, we need as much up in cap as we can get just to protect. Now, the problem with the Fulmer is if we look at the aircraft data, these things lose maneuverability very quickly the higher you get them up in altitude. I mean, ideally, you'd have them flying at 9,000 feet because this is the only way they're even decently maneuverable. But really, they're good strafing planes. You can put them up in cap at a very low altitude. They're usually going to get torn up a little bit by Japanese early war fighters, but it's planes. We just need planes. It doesn't really, in some cases, matter what they are. As you can see, they always start off damaged. We've got them on the ship now, so they show as damaged. When we drop them off, they will repair themselves naturally as they get there. Average experience, okay, we've got 12 pilots. With 12 planes, I usually like to have 13 or 14 pilots. We could go request a veteran, search by air, or sort by air. 56 experience, 59 air. I'd probably take him. Let's click on him. Assign to the General Reserve, transfer to 806th. Yes. And now he's going to go out there. He should get there in 6 days. He's due in 6. Now we've got plenty of time before we get down to Karachi. So anyway, oh no, I'm getting stuck here on one area. Let's keep going around the map. In India, you've got all kinds of garrison requirements. Try to fill those up with the bare minimum, and then everything else send by rail to Calcutta, to Madras, and to Bombay. So you got to fulfill your. So let's just look up here. I don't know, Kanpur, uh, 51. You can see the garrison here. Let's look at the garrison requirement. It's 40. we're in the green because we do have 51. And if we look at the two different units, you can just hover over it here. This has got an assault value of 12. Okay. This has an assault value of 39. Now, if this was 40, we could take this base force and send it somewhere else, right? It doesn't. I mean, what can I say? It's only got 39, and we need 40 to be green in the garrison. And so what I've done is I've gone to all these places, figured out, what needs a garrison. We've got 42 here at Amritsar. How do you say that? Amritsar? Okay, sure. Our garrison requirement's 30. We've got 42 in there. If we hover over here, assault is 3. Assault is 39. So we could take this engineering unit and move it and go use this for other stuff. I haven't done that yet. No real reason for it. We could get it out of here. We don't need the assault value here um, because we've got enough with just this infantry unit. You want to try to keep, northern commands up here if you can, for these garrison requirements. Some of these are kind of big. I mean, Rawalpindi, we've got 186 in strength here. Its two infantry units are static. You can see you can't move them. They are completely static. So if we look here, I was wondering in the pop-up if it showed us. It doesn't. But when you click on the unit, you look here, you can't move it, you can't strategic move it. So anyway, I guess big picture, the idea is meet the bare minimum of your garrison requirements and send everything else to Bombay, Madras, and Calcutta. Everything you can. Some things you maybe even buy out, put on a ship, and take into Colombo. All right. So, but those are your big three nodes in India. Those three: Bombay, Madras, and Calcutta. Okay, down here we've got Colombo. There's been a lot of action in and around here. I can tell you in an upcoming turn, as you'll see, it becomes very important that you have recon out on these islands. Get recon planes out here. Adu, we have nothing right now. Mail, we have nothing. Why does that become important? Well, the Japanese player knows you've got a lot of recon up here by India. You're going to have some in Madras. We've got some Lysanders doing some recon out here. We've got torpedo bombers and fighters. If we look at Trincomalee, I don't have any planes there. Madras, I think, yeah, here we go. We've got our big Catalinas out here running massive searches. Really, though, these guys should probably be in Colombo, and then you should have float planes at Mail and Adu. Why is that? Well, if he's coming up, past Sumatra through the Strait of Malacca, and he comes up this way, you can't detect him forever in this area. You just don't have anything out here. The first places you could start to detect him would be Adu and Mail. Again, why is that important? Well, I mean, you kind of, as the allied player, are going to be operating most of the time like he's not going to be up here in the Arabian Sea because you have so much shipping coming in here. It's super dangerous if he is. Well, and you've got a lot of stuff at Bombay too, right? Usually. As a matter of fact, let's go see. What do I have sitting at Bombay right now? Well, we've got the Carrier Indomitable, the Royal Sovereign battleship. We've got two cruisers, four light cruisers, destroyers, and a destroyer. We've got a full carrier task force, except we've only got the one British carrier. It's got, 9 Fulmars, 18 Albacores, and 6 Sea Hurricanes. I mean, this is what the Brits ran with. I don't know. They've got 15 fighters and 12 torpedo bombers. Okay, so but otherwise, I mean, we've got a battleship in here early on with the Brits. I'll keep a battleship in here for the anti-aircraft 782 for the Royal Sovereign. And then, I mean, we've got other stuff for its AA capability. So we've got a bunch of stuff here. Should he sneak up here with his carriers, that could be deadly at Bombay. And so, you're hiding them. Look, ultimately, you could just keep these things at Aden. Just let them sit up there until we get closer to 1943, because one British carrier operating on its own is going to do jack diddly squat. The only way that it could be advantageous for you to have it on the map is he does what he was doing earlier, and that's why I have them at Bombay, is coming up here with battleships and raiding our ports. If that happens, you can bring the carriers down here, woo, 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 and maybe blow up some battleships. But you've got to be super vigilant that he doesn't sneak carriers up here, which means recon at these three islands, Diego Garcia, Adu, and Mail, and also something in Trivandrum or Cochin, so you capture this straight. Now, if it comes up this way, you're probably going to see it because of Colombo, but if he comes out this way, you just don't have a lot here, and so just something to keep in mind. Okay, if we went down to Cape Town, again, it's all about Perth. I mean, you're everything you can see. We've got a lot of ships here, but we're very low on fuel, as is Australia itself. We've got to get as many ships full of fuel. Easy for me to say. Now we've got a lot of supply, but really we don't have any fuel for these ships that are low. So I have got just an incredible number of American tankers coming to load up Cape Town. So that's going on. We've got some damaged ships here at Diego Garcia. If we look over in Rangoon, where we had these awesome air battles last time, we've got the Flying Tigers. We've got 5 of those. We've got 6 Hurricane 2A Trops that are ready. Now, when you hover over this, it's going to tell you how many are ready. You can see 6 there, here 5. So we've got 5 ready, 5 damaged. Average repair time, it's going to take 1 day on average to get these guys back. Now, the Flying Tigers have 20 kills. Unfortunately, they've lost 33, 42 planes. So they're running 2-to-1 on losses. The Trops, on the other hand, came in last time. They got 8 kills, lost 5 planes. Okay. And then we've got Recon here. This is a brand new unit that we got last turn. Hurricane PR2. It's Recon 2. I like to put this one out on Port Blair, and I think I'll do that. So that way it gets, as a matter of fact, let's just do it. Transfer base. Let's go out to Port Blair, assuming, and I think we certainly have the, I can't get there. He's going to have to, oh, drop tank's unavailable. Did I just not see it? What's his maximum range? Oh, it's only 9. Okay, so we'll have to wait until the drop tanks are available. He's ready. They should be okay next turn. We got a lot of fuel here in Rangoon. Okay, well, anyway, we'll come back and look at that some other time. But I usually like to have those at Port Blair, so anything that's coming, through this area, you know about it. If you can keep Sabang, that's awesome too, because you can run recon here, and he can never sneak anything there. He would have to come through the strait, but you'll see him coming through the strait as he goes. You just have to remember he did it. Over in China, we're in okay shape. I'm usually in much better shape than we are now. As you can see, Wu Chao, Lin, Nanning, kind of got a strong triangle here. Then we've got the 4 bases here at Changsha, in and around Changsha. I'm trying to get all of these troops back here. You can see the little notches on them where they're headed. I've actually got this guy trying to get down here on the road, get around. If I had to do it all over again, I'd probably just leave these guys out here. I've done that in games. It's usually pretty successful because the Japanese player takes forever trying to like take these bases from you. As it is now, he's scooted up his line. Our big problem is this unit trapped out here. You can see I've got a lot of forces coming here. We've gotten kicked out of Cyan. But what's important over here? Well, I Cheng, Changsha, any of these out here really, if you lose Wu Chao, that's okay. You drop back to Kuei Lin. You got to keep this, though, Lu Chao, because if he gets on this, he can start potentially threatening Chungking from the south. So if you're going to mass up anywhere, do it here because it's almost impossible for the Japanese to come up this way. It's bad terrain, rivers, etc., etc. So get here, here, here. It's all approaches to Chungking, right? This is very concerning. He did a great job of coming up here. I've never seen anybody do this, but it's very hard to operate against. At Nanyang, he's now taken that, and it's kind of split our forces over here. And now we're just kind of out here in no man's land. We need to get back here to Ankang. We need to get back to Kianko and make sure he's got no eastern approach to the plateau here. Also, the maybe the most important thing in the north is hold Lanchow. Lanchow, I was saying, it's worth different points. If you look here, value to Japan 300 points, value to allies 6. So it's worth a lot to him, and you just got to make sure he doesn't come get Lanchow. So anything up here, sometimes, I'll move the Red Army up here. Historically, the Red Army was at Yan'an. You can't really hold Yan'an if he gets on this road. And so just drop back to Lanchow. It's just worth so many damn points. You got to hold it. Uh, that's really all that's going on in China. I mean, you keep getting your reserves into Chongqing, just keep sending them down the roadways and try to beef this stuff up as much as you can. Now, usually in China, you're going to have supply problems, and when you do, you need to take some of the units that'll be in a hex and move them to a different hex because the Chinese, they can live off the land, all of these troops, and so if you move some over into this hex, they'll be in better shape. As you can see, we got the red exclamation point of death here because we're very low on supply there at Hengyang. Do we have it anywhere else? Yeah, we do at Aicheng, obvious as well. You can see 29-24 on the Garrison. That's massive, but we're going to have to take some of these troops and disperse them a little bit. A little bit. You don't want to do too much because if you do and he comes and takes Aicheng, you're in a world of hurt because he will have split the Chinese army in half, essentially. So you want to, steer clear of that if you can. You can see a lot of red exclamation down in the Philippines. These guys are starving out. He's taken Luzon for the, there's a few minor bases down here. He's into Leyte. He's into Mindanao. We'll continue to put up a fight here like at Cagayan, but these guys, there's no way they can hold on. If we look down this way, he's taken Singapore, Palembang. We've got a modified version of Fortress Palembang. We've got as much in there as we could get. 179 is not going to stop much Japanese aggression, no. Batavia, Surabaya, the other two important places here. He's already taken Balikpapan. Also, all of your subs come in at Surabaya, so the longer you can hold that, the more the Dutch subs could potentially do some damage, although they haven't done a whole lot this game, I will say. Darwin is always hard to supply. One of your very first moves of the game should be take a massive task force, sail it around, and put as much supply in Darwin as you can, because once he's down in this area, and these are his carriers, I believe, there are his carriers. You can see he's got numerous carriers here. Once they're in this position, you can't sail anything north up here. They'll just get blown away. And coming around this way is also very dangerous because you'll have subs out here. Sometimes a Japanese player will bring his carriers down here if he's really got an itching to take Northern Australia. So, you know, get as much supply up to Darwin as you can. When we come back next time, I'm going to look all around Australia. If we just look high level here, this is where a lot of the action is. I've got subs. You can see we've got American subs out here all over the place. And I'm moving, like this guy, he's moving, he's got to go replenish. But I've got subs crawling here. Here's more coming. Here's another one coming over. Here's one in front of Moresby. Here's one up here. Here's one by Rabal. I say one, it's actually multiple subs. That's two. This is only one. That's four. That's two subs. You can see in the pop-up there, SSSS. That means there's two subs in that task force. So anyway, I've got subs everywhere here, but he's landed in Buna. He's looking to take Buna, and we have a terrible supply situation in Moresby. And you can also see where he's bombed. He's got the port down to a 1 and the airbase down to a 3. We've got to get these fighters out of here if we could, but 6 of them are damaged. They may be just stuck here. They may be done for because the runway is now the runway is down to a 3 and they're all damaged. It's going to take 4 days to repair them. So if he keeps hitting the airbase, we're in trouble. Down here, we'll talk about. I've got a lot of American equipment and troops coming to Australia. I have a lot coming through New Zealand. You can see we've got task forces moving out here through the South Pacific. I'm beefing up Nomaya, that's coming, Suva, Pago. We've got Tahiti and Haiva Oa, where we kind of have our refueling bases I'm trying to set up. You can see all of the ships, moving out here kind of in a line from the U.S. West Coast, some up here. Didn't talk about Pearl Harbor this time. Next time, I swear, we'll go through Midway, Johnston, Palmyra, Christmas, up into that area. West Coast, we just got stuff coming out, whether it be going all the way to around Australia or out to Pearl Harbor, up to Alaska in some cases, out of San Francisco, most likely out of Seattle, though. But when we come back next time, we'll see what's happening. What am I really looking for? Well, let's see if he's going to start expanding into the Dutch East Indies at all. Port Moresby, as I said, he's landed down here in Papua. He's landed in Buna. Is he going to take that base? I would assume, but can we hold him off a little bit? We'll see. And then he'll start moving across here and across the isthmus to Port Moresby. And we'll try to hold it as long as we can, but we've got no supply. Otherwise, he seems to be just parking his carriers right here. Because we know that, we kind of know where they are. Nomaya, Suva, Pago. Now is the time to get them built up. Also, Canton. I'm going to build it. I'm going to build it. Penryn, Canton, Christmas, kind of a triangle here, through Palmyra, which forms another triangle. I'm going to build all of this. The further we can be over here, if he's not going to take Canton, fantastic. When we move up to the northern, what do we have out here? Oh, it's a sub. Okay, we've got more subs on the way. Um, if we move over to the North Pacific, as you can see, I mean, from Midway to Alaska, there's nothing. And so we may as well build all of this up here because this eventually, as was historically true, is kind of where the Allies start building all of this up and then can start thrusting up this way. And I think in this game, we may kind of just bypass Papua New Guinea and maybe start landing up in these places as the game moves on so that we're really starting to pressure the home island, get B-17s out here. There's no place to bomb from out here. You got to kind of come from the south. And so that's what we'll be doing. Anyway, this has been Strategy Gaming Dojo. We'll be back with combat resolution. Talk to you next time. Have a good one.